So welcome back guys to We Talk Boxing, and today I'm going to be talking about the fight which took place between Joe Joyce versus Dereck Chisora. Now, for those that have watched the fight, it was a very good competitive fight between both guys, and in the end, Delboy strolls on to continue his career and obviously to try and claim a few more big paydays. And it was a sensational performance from him as well, considering his age and the long, tough, rugged career that he's had. Well, it was a splendid victory, and he outpointed and defeated and dropped the slightly younger man in Joe Joyce. But it was a competitive fight from both fronts, and the earlier rounds quite close. I would generally score, you know what I mean. It was only a 10 rounder, but the first 5 rounds were very, very, very close for both guys, and depending on obviously what style you preferred, or if you're going with who threw more punches, or maybe who landed more punches, then it would determine how you pretty much scored the rounds. But for me, all the rounds were competitive and very, very close, so it's quite hard to see who was winning at what point. But it was the latter half of the fight which kind of told us who was kind of winning, and it was quite surprisingly because in round 6 and 8 and stuff, where Dereck Chisora was coming on strong and he was landing some big combos on Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce does what Joe Joyce does, kept coming forward, kept absorbing some of these big shots that he was taking from Delboy, but he was landing his own as well, and his jab at times, Joe Joyce, looked pretty good. But for me, it was the fact that yes, his jab looked good, and yes, he was catching Delboy, but he just couldn't stay away from Dereck Chisora's shots. And Dereck Chisora kept plodding along, and throwing his big shots that he was, his haymakers, I should say. And it was just a matter of time where he caught Joe Joyce on the chin, and it was pretty much from a short right hand, because he was coming off the rope as he was throwing the punch, and it caught Joe Joyce quite flush. Didn't hurt Joyce. Obviously, he went down, had a second to himself, and got back up. But it's the fact that at that point it was a 10-8 round, and at that late point in the fight, it's not a good look, because if the rounds were fairly close prior to that, that just put Delboy ahead. And that's exactly what it was. The fight ended. It went the 10-round distance, and Delboy scored it unanimously. If I remember rightly, I think it was 97, was it 97, 92 or something like that, and then two judges had the same, 96, 94 I think. So yeah, all three judges favoured Delboy, and the knockdown certainly played into the hands of that fight. But it was a very, very competitive fight, and in my prediction before the fight, I did say that if Joe Joyce does what Joe Joyce does and comes forward, no lateral movement, no head movement, slow-footed, he's going to get caught. And if he's not on the top of his game, he's going to, you know what I mean? Delboy can make most fighters look average and make them look quite basic, really. And that's exactly what happened. And it's a tricky one now, because where does Joe Joyce go from this point on? And my head's kind of baffled, because he didn't look good against the guy that he fought last, Joe Joyce. What was his name again? Oh, bloody hell. What was his name? Something Ali. I can't remember his name. But anyhow, Joe Joyce didn't look good against him, but he come out with the victory. He lost twice prior to that, which was against Zhang. We all know what happened there. Absolutely got demolished. And now he's lost against Dereck Chisora, and he got floored against Dereck Chisora as well. And he took a lot of big right hands against Dereck Chisora, which he just couldn't get out of the way of. So the question beckons, and I'm like, where does he go from here? The only way I kind of see is that he takes the rest of this year off. Obviously now in July, probably goes back to the drawing board and somehow try and work on some of his weaknesses, and his weaknesses are there for everyone to see. He's got no head movement. He's very, very laboured, very flat-footed, slow-footed. His work rate is very slow as well. He hasn't got no energy. He hasn't got no change of gear in his approach. So yeah, he has to go back to the drawing board, and it could be a case where should he lose a little bit of weight so that maybe he could probably get a little bit more mobile on his feet. And if he loses a little bit of weight, he'll probably think to himself, you know what? I probably haven't got that durability, which may lead to him actually moving his head a little bit, probably trying to use some lateral movement rather than coming in a straight line all the time, and you know what I mean, being an easy target for people to throw shots and land on you. But these are just a couple of things that I think that he needs to consider if he wants to continue in boxing. And the reason why I say that is because he's not young. He's like 38 or 39 or something like that. So he's not young. So he hasn't got long left in boxing, and he's only had 3 losses. So he can come back from this. But does he want to come back from this defeat as a, I don't know, rebuilding your career? You know what I mean? If all the heavyweight belts get fragmented and all the big boys retire, could he try and challenge again at some point in the future for a world title? But for him to do that, he has to look at his weaknesses and try and make them into. He has to try and improve on them basically, because everyone knows how to fight against Joe Joyce now. He's a durable guy, tough guy. He's got a granite chin, but you can't rely on that. Otherwise, you're just going to take a lot of punishment in the fight. At some point, you're going to go down, or if it's a very, very close fight, you leave it into the judge's hands. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Joe Joyce, and it's quite sad to see, as I said, when he defeated Daniel Dubois. Most boxing fans at that point were saying, you know what, this guy, I mean, he's going to win a world title. He's going to challenge the big boys, your Tysons, your AJs, your Usyks. He's going to be up there with those guys. And now he's had 3 savage defeats, and this last one is going to hurt because it's against Delboy, and Delboy's only got a couple of fights left. So yeah, this will probably hit him hard. Anyhow, in terms of Dereck Chisora, I feel as if, yeah, he said it clear as day. He's been saying it all like throughout this camp really, that he wants to get to 50 fights. He's only got 2 fights left to make that happen. Good performance. Most people didn't see him doing that or even dropping Joe Joyce, so he's still got a little bit left in the tank. But he takes a lot of punishment. Who would I like to see him in there next? I think it's quite obvious for most people who were there or were watching, I should say. You've got Dillian Whyte, which is the nice and easiest, obvious fight for him to go up against. And then after that, I don't know. I don't know who after that. But yeah, I think his next fight should be against Dillian Whyte. I'm going to make a separate video in regards to Dillian Whyte at some point. But yeah, Dereck Chisora versus Dillian Whyte is looking like it could be next. And who I favour at this moment in time in that fight, I favour Dereck Chisora. And the reason being is that I'm not sitting here and be like, it's because he beat Joe Joyce, and like thinking, because he beat Joe Joyce, he could beat Dillian Whyte. That's not the reason how I've come to this conclusion. My conclusion at this point is that he's more active. Yes, that was his first fight in over a year, but Dillian Whyte has only had, a round and a half, 2 rounds? And that was against that guy. I can't remember who he fought last, and that was a bit of a gimmick, really. The guy didn't come in here to fight. So, yeah, I would choose Dereck Chisora at this point to beat Dillian Whyte. And the only way that would change my mind, and I'll probably edge more towards Dillian Whyte, is if Dillian Whyte could probably have a fight or 2 before he gets in there with Dereck Chisora. And if he puts on a decent performance, then obviously I'm going to go with Dillian Whyte, because I like Dillian Whyte. I just feel as if he hasn't been active, and there's been a lot of issues around that. But yeah, activity kills fighters, and we've seen that on multiple occasions. But anyhow, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How did you rate the performance between Joe Joyce and Dereck Chisora? And who would you like Dereck Chisora to go up against next? And what would you like Joe Joyce to do next in his career? As always, guys, please subscribe and comment. Bless.